What up, Wager Bros? Welcome back. It is Wednesday, April 9th. We've been off for a few days. It's Masters Week. Judging by the shirts that we have on, this is going to be a golf episode. Okay?
Yeah.
This is going to be a longer episode, probably our longest episode in the history of the show.
Yeah.
We're going to talk, we've got a lot of topics to cover on the eve of the Masters in 2025. We've got, being there last year. We've got, the course changes after the hurricane in the fall. We've got some kind of oversights we'll talk about of players that aren't in the field. We're going to be going through, our top Masters shots of all time. There's so many. How can we both pick three? I think we've made a good job, and there's some obvious and not so obvious ones. And then we've got our winners, our backups, and our dark horses for this year. I think we all know who we're rooting for. Sorry. But we've also got some make the cut parlays, and then we've got our picks for Thursday in round one. But before we get too far into it, we went last year.
Cool.
We went a year ago today on Wednesday,
Mhm.
and you got fortunate enough to be gifted 2 practice round tickets. And what did you say about the meet your heroes thing? Like, or it being a letdown when you build something up in your head? What was your about that?
Yeah, well, two things real quick before we get into this. Number one, the last time we recorded, we went 3-0, so we didn't mention that.
Yeah, we
that
did go
was on
3-0.
Monday.
Yeah.
So there you go. So that, and then also today is kind of like, it's like Christmas Eve, except the cool thing about Christmas being tomorrow is that Christmas lasts 4 days instead of just one.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
I can't
anyway.
show you because of where my camera is, but I have literally moved my 50-inch TV from the basement to right next to me so I can have the Masters on right next to me. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah, the par 3 contest starts in 2.5 hours on ESPN Plus or something like that. So, as we're recording this right now at like 9:00 in the morning. But anyways, yeah, like you said, being there last year, and this is the way I describe it to anybody that's asked me what it was like being there. Basically, the way I word it is, if you build something up in your head, how amazing something could be, that it could never live up to that. This was not that situation. Nope. It nope. was any more, whether you believe that there's a heaven or not or whatever, but if there is a heaven, I believe that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I'll say this: we were standing in line. We got there at like 5:30 or 6 in the morning. Gates open at 7, and we're standing in line. Scott Van Pelt is standing right next to us, or around the corner, and just everybody's being cool. And you walk in, you scan your badge, you go right to the merch tent. I spent like $4,000 at the merch tent. And the crazy thing is, we walked in the south entrance where when you come out of the merch tent, your quickest access to the course is on 5 fairway. And yep. I distinctly remember, for years I've thought, why is 5 such a difficult hole? And like we'll learn through this, you step out onto that fairway from 180 yards. That is, that shot looks it looks like the green is just sitting on the top of a teacup, and you're like, I couldn't hit a golf ball green if he gave me a lifetime. And so, that's going to be a running thing. I will say what shocked me the most was how absurdly downhill number 6 was. Like that, we walked out 5, we walked past the green, you get out 6. I was literally like leaning back with my feet at an angle, like trying to walk down that hill. And it's like that's the thing about Augusta, is you have no idea how really hilly it is until you get there on property. It was just up and down, just all day.
It's insane.
And I was so, I have neuropathy in my legs, and I didn't feel it until the next day. But good Lord, like that was something I did not expect. Just walking the back 9. Sitting in Amen Corner, like we got to sit on those.
I could have sat there. I could still be sitting there and not have moved.
Right.
So
I remember we just sat there in silence for like 30 minutes, just like looking at it. I will tell everybody here, I don't care how beautiful it looks on TV. It is nothing compared to what it looks like in person. It is nothing. Just sitting there and just imagining all the shots. You're looking at where Larry Mize chipped in. You're looking at where, Tiger Woods, hit it there. We'll talk about that later. You're looking at the tee shot at 13, and it truly is the greatest corner in the history of golf. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it's something, something else, at all. But the course is going to be different this year. There was, a little bit different. Obviously Augusta got hit by Hurricane Helene last year in the
Yeah.
fall. And 130 mile an hour winds. The storm killed like 230 people across the country. 50, 60 trees. We all saw the drone shots that came out right after the hurricane, and everybody said, Ridley said, it's going to happen same way, but there's some difference. So a couple of things. If we watched the interviews yesterday, um, you know, there's a couple big trees down on the left on 10, and actually John Rahm was the one who said, you might be able, those guys that struggle to hit the draw, that hit those big slingo cuts. He said, if you can
Just
get the ball up
straight
high
over it
enough,
now.
just you can go straight over it now, which, instead of guys having to hit 3-wood down there, I mean, if you can get a driver ball up high enough, I mean, you could be down there right in front of the bunker, and that shaves 20. I mean, you're going to see 130, 140 yard approach shots. Like,
Yeah.
maybe gap wood is going in there instead of 9-iron. Like, that would be interesting. But I think the bigger one, and you may not agree with me on this, there's 10 trees that are down on 12, on the back of 12. Does that impact the swirliness of the winds? Give me your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could. I mean, I don't know, 10 trees down out of, hundreds, maybe it doesn't really make that big of a difference. But I think regardless, it's still going to be, not an easy golf shot. So
Yeah,
regardless.
I think it's just going to add to the mental. It's going to add to the mental. Like, oh, am I really feeling this now with the trees being different? Especially guys that have played there a lot, like Rory or or a Jordan Spieth or something like that. Like, it's like, oh, am I feeling this now? It's going to be a different feel for it. I mean, same thing on 13, right? Like, you've got all those trees. You've got, they've kind of still have the overhang on the left side, so the big hitters can kind of take it over. But if you, there's not as big of a penal chance of going long on 13 now, because there's like 6 or 7 trees that have been removed there, so you can go long and you might actually have room to hit a flop shot
Yeah.
onto the green. I don't know.
And as well, like on 12, and we've seen this in the past, Augusta has their traditions. There's certain things that are supposed to be certain ways, right? So if 12 becomes too easy, they will just back the tee up a little bit, and so you're hitting what you should be hitting into that green as opposed to a wedge or something like that. So
yeah, absolutely. And then 16, 30% of the trees are different on 16, right? I think your point there is right, but like, does that, you can't, when you have that far right, like Thursday or Friday pin, like you see guys hitting, you guys seeing guys try to land it on that shelf back there on the far right and keep it there. Like, do they try to, you can kind of sling a draw in there now, the Sunday pin, like, is the wind going to be as effective? Do you got to hit, if it's into you hard, do you got to hit a lower shot into the hill? Then historically you can just float an 8-iron up to the back of the green and let it roll down. Like, I think we're gonna see. I think we're gonna see more so than any other year. We're gonna see some different golf shots on the back nine this year for sure. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the changes. But let's get to a topic that's very close and dear to my heart. Kind of a hot topic this week. So Luke Clanton, obviously from my alma mater of Florida State, recently got his PGA Tour card. He hasn't accepted it yet. If he'd accepted and foregone his NCAA eligibility, he'd be in the Masters this week. But he's not in the Masters this week, and I think this is a glaring oversight. He's the number one amateur in the world, and despite being the number one amateur, he's inside the top 100 in the official world golf rankings. Like, why is Luke Clanton, for a tournament that claims that, it was created by the greatest amateur of all time and Bobby Jones. Like, why is one of the arguably the greatest amateurs in our game not playing in the Masters as an amateur? Like,
Yeah. And there's only, I think, 5 amateurs in the field, right?
yeah,
So I feel like there's usually more than that.
yeah.
So why
And
couldn't
two of
we
those
add
amateurs got
the
special exemptions. Like, two of those amateurs got
yeah
special invites. Like,
yeah
why could Luke Clanton not get a special invite? But I don't know. The guys had 21 top tens in 46 college tournaments with 6 wins in the last 2 years. And if he was on the PGA Tour doing that, second to Scotty Scheffler.
yeah
You
right
know, and he came in second in the John Deere. Like, come on, guys. Augusta, I love you, but that's not something I'm a fan of because I just want to see my Florida State boys get in. All right, so we got that. Let's talk about. Let's go down memory lane, not Magnolia Lane. Even though we have pictures at the top of Magnolia Lane, which I'll throw up here. Um, uh, Also, if you're in Augusta, make it a point to go to the Hooters on
go see
down the
John
road from the
Daly.
Masters. We did, and there is nothing quite like seeing John Daly at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, just absolutely hammered, singing country songs and selling merch on the
Yeah,
back patio of a Hooters. That was pretty
that
amazing.
was pretty
But
cool.
we're gonna talk about our top 3 favorite Masters shots of all time. We'll each pick 3. I'll start. I think one of the earliest memories I have watching old Masters footage when I was, even before like Tiger. I mean, I probably saw this for the first time in like 94, 95 as I was getting into golf. The jack putt on 17 in 86 with Vern Lundquist being like, yes, sir, to beat Norman, right? People don't realize that Jack Nicklaus was 5 shots back to start that round, or 6, and
Yeah.
that putt on 17 was, number one, walking up to 17 and seeing where that putt is impossible, and somehow Jack made it. That's going to be kind of a theme through these top shots, but I would say for my first like top 3 shot, Jack on 17.
Yeah, I kind of went with because obviously any of those shots in '86 is amazing, but I kind of went with 3 that I was physically able to watch that I watched live. Obviously,
Yeah,
1986 in April, I wasn't born yet, right?
neither
So
was I.
so I went, basically this is going to be from shots that I remember watching 100% live. So.
Okay.
Um, First one that I've got is Phil Mickelson's putt at 18 to finally win his first major there in 2004.
Yep.
So
You and I were watching that
I
together.
yes, we were.
Yeah.
It was on
Yeah.
Easter as well. So that was
Yep.
one of the times that the Masters fell on Easter Sunday. So
Back when we were getting
yeah,
Easter baskets and not making them for our kids.
yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was great. We had seen, from 99, all the way through, we had seen Phil come so close, and the best player in the world that had never won a major, right? And that was iconic. And a
Also,
putt that we
yeah. I was just going to say also a fun fact about 2004. That was the first of the back-to-back years that Chris DeMarco was in the final group on the Masters. So there you go.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, and also Phil's putt in 2004 to win was almost the exact same putt that Mark O'Mara had in '98 to win. Coincidentally, so love that. Speaking of
Round the edge.
Phil, yeah, I'll give you another Phil. Phil in 2010 on 13, hitting it through the trees to 6 feet on Sunday, and everybody being like, "What the heck is he doing? You're supposed to punch this out and lay up." And he hits a 6 iron from 198 yards to 6 feet, and then coincidentally missed the putt. But I mean, obviously, in the playbook in the annals of great Masters shots, I mean, you can't leave off
100%.
Phil on the approach shot there.
100%. And then my second one is Bubba Watson, his shot from the trees there on 10.
Yeah,
And we went to that spot as well. And I even got even more appreciation for that shot, seeing because
yeah,
they've actually planted a little tree there now so that,
yeah,
nobody can hit that shot ever again, quote unquote. And
yeah.
there is no way that you can hit a shot out of there on, let alone just onto the green anywhere, let alone
Yeah.
to get it within 15 feet or whatever he hit it to.
Yeah, like we stood there, and granted, we're both right-handed, right? So you're not going to slice a pitching wedge 45 yards, but like it's much
Right.
easier to hook a wedge. But still,
Sure, but
in the
still, yeah.
playoff, like like to get it, to get it there and get that done, like standing there. And there was a group of us. We're all like, there was like 10 people. We're smoking cigars. Remember that? We were smoking cigars, and we're just like, there's no way. Like this shot is not humanly possible. I mean, I've hooked a wedge 45 yards, but it was on accident. Okay, I'm not going to do it in the Masters on
And the
purpose.
Masters wasn't on the line either. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. So, and this is going to be, I think for our last ones, we both got a Tiger shot. Obviously, I know the one you're going to take, but I'm going to take a different one. I'm going to take Tiger on 12 in 2019 because that to me showed the true champion's mindset where, Tiger was still one shot back at that point and or two shots back at that point. And what he needed to do was he needed to put the ball on the green. And everybody, we had just seen the previous group, they were playing threesomes that day because it was supposed to be raining. The previous group, all three guys put it in the water. Brooks put it in the water and everything. And then Tiger steps up, puts it in the middle of the green, just like Jack always says. You put it in the middle of the green between the bunkers on 12. That's what you do. Regardless of where the pin is, that's where you put it. And Tiger does that. And then Francesco Molinari and Tony Finau both put it in the water. And then the coolest thing, kind of the most gangster move of that whole back nine, is Tiger Woods standing on the green with his hand on his hip, waiting for these guys to pitch it onto the green. I just think that tee shot on 12 was just iconic for what somebody who's won the Masters a bunch knows what to do, and that's what you do in those moments. You put the ball where it needs to be. So that would be my third shot.
Yeah, no, I mean you can't go wrong. I would also could say where he kind of clinched it a little. You could say on 16 where he hit it to 2 feet as well that same year.
Yeah.
But speaking of 16, Tiger Woods 2005. In your life, have you seen anything like that?
Yeah.
No.
Another one
so,
that we looked at when we were there and we're like, no way. Like, but we were watching that together, I remember. And you actually have played golf with Chris DeMarco. Like, you've met him several times. And I remember DeMarco hits it to like 16 feet. And then Tiger snap hooks it left. And you're like, I remember you saying this. You're like, Davis Love hit it there and chipped it in a few years back.
yep.
And all of a sudden, like, you get up there, you're thinking Tiger's going to struggle to make par here, right? If he gets it within 15 feet, like, that's a great shot. And DeMarco's standing in an uphill right to lefter for birdie. And then all of a sudden, Tiger Woods chips it in for the most iconic shot of all time. And then bogeys the next two holes. But, I think that, I mean, that if you had to pick one of these six, I mean, you're going to pick that one. But, yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah, that's the other thing is I tried not to go too obvious with the with the top three shots. So
I mean, there's a bunch of other ones we could have picked too. There's Louis Oosthuizen's Albatross. There's there's Larry Mize's chip in. There's Sandy Lyle from the bunker on 18. There's there's Rory's chip in, bunker shot to hole out. With and then Colin dumped it right on top of him. Like there's so many iconic shots that you could think of on that. All right, so we got that. Now let's get into some picks. Let's look at we've done this for the majors on the show before. We're gonna do winners, backup, and dark horses. Let's start with the dark horses. I'm going to go with probably an obvious dark horse here in Brooks Koepka. Obviously, live star. The guy wins majors. He doesn't seem to care about anything other than majors. And always tends to play well in them. He was, second to Tiger in 2019. He's won, 3 PGAs and two US Opens. I think that, if anybody can figure out a golf course, this week, it's probably going to be Brooks Koepka. If he has to get it done, he hadn't he hadn't won a major yet in 2019 when he came second to Tiger. So I think that or actually no, he had, but I still think he's going to have. I think he's got a better chance of anybody being a 5-time major winner. So he'd be my dark horse for this week.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a pretty bright dark horse, you could say, with his record in the majors. But and I think mine as well. My dark horse, he hasn't really been talked about too much since the Ryder Cup last year with his play in the Ryder Cup. But so my third choice, my dark horse, is going to be Patrick Cantlay. So like I said, he hasn't been talked about too much, but he's not been playing terrible. But he's one to watch out for as well. So,
and then for my backup, because I think it's obvious who we're picking for the winner. But for my backup, I'm taking the big Swede, Ludwig Aberg. I mean, obviously he won the Genesis this year. He's been around everything. I think that last year was his first Masters ever, and he was in the mix on Sunday. I think that he's he hits the ball very, very long, very, very straight, and has big feet and pretty teeth. So he's not a bad choice at all to pick as a backup here. And I think Ludwig, if our main pick doesn't get it done, I think Ludwig's going to be right there.
Yeah, and then my backup, I mean, defending champion, 1-2 the last 3, number 1 in the world, trending correctly. The exact same thing happened 2 weeks ago where he came in second by 1 shot, at the Texas Children's Hospital Championship. Scotty Scheffler, defending champion. You can't not pick him in some fashion, in my opinion. So
yeah, love that. And then both of us for our winners. I sent you a meme about this yesterday.
I know. I'm not going to pick Rory. I'm not going to pick Rory. Wins 2 tournaments before the Masters. Fuck it, I'm picking Rory.
Yeah, exactly. Rory McIlroy to win the Masters. It's a winner pick for both of us. To complete the career Grand Slam. He's never been trending as well heading into a Masters as he has heading into this one. I think his game's in the right place. His head's in the right place. I like that he's been tempering expectations the last 2 weeks in interviews. Come on, Rory.
No kidding. Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's got to be like, for whatever reason, you would think with the way he drives the ball that this would be, he would have won this thing 4 or 5 times already. It just hasn't happened for whatever reason. I feel like it's got to come at some point. So why not this year?
Yeah, exactly. So come on, Rory. I told my wife on Sunday, if Rory is in the mix, I'm going to become a feral golf fan like I was 13 again. And I will be eating brisket and pimento cheese sandwiches and hoping. All right. So Rory, Ludwig, and Brooks for my winner backup dark horse. Rory, Scotty, and Patrick for your winner backup dark horse. Now we're going to come up with a little parlay for making the cut. Shout out to the Foreplay guys for always doing this. This is our take on it. I'm going to go with three pretty obvious ones. And I'm going to go with Captain Keegan Bradley, Patrick Cantlay, and Tom Kim. Obviously Captain Keegan, we will be at the Ryder Cup later this year. Patrick Cantlay just always seems to be there around it in the majors. Probably one of the better players that has yet to pull the string. And Tom Kim, who I genuinely dislike in the President's Cup, but he is, he's a great golfer, has dueled Scotty Scheffler. I think the guy's trending well. He's only missed 2 cuts this year. I think Tom Kim makes the cut. And probably finishes top 25 if I had to make an estimation on that.
Nice. And then to add to that, I have got a guy that we love, 2 guys that we love actually, that we called last year in the Scottish Open. We love him, Robert McIntyre.
Yeah.
And then we're going to let Minwoo cook. Let's see if he can cook all the way to the weekend. So Minwoo Lee. And last, guy that had been playing fairly well, not quite as well recently, but I feel like now that it's major time, he'll show up again. Lucas Glover. So
Yeah.
the odds on mine were minus 310, minus 280, minus 175.
Yeah. I mean, Luke Glover's major champion, right? Like, so, like, you
Yeah.
gotta, he knows how to get it done. Yeah, like those. So Keegan Bradley, Patrick Cantlay, Tom Kim, minus 200, minus 350, minus 230 on mine. Bobby Mack, Minwoo Lee, and Lucas Glover, minus 310, minus 280, minus 175. The three-way parlay, or the six-way parlay. Sorry, I'm used to doing the show every day. The six-way parlay on the Make the Cut is plus 680. So get that in. Make a quick little 7x on your money, and then and then let's wrap it up with our picks for Thursday. We went here with the Wager Bros. We went 3-0 on Monday. As I was flying back from Texas, we took a couple days off. Wanted to do this preview show, do some research, but we've got 3 picks for Thursday, and we're going to start. They're all single round matchups, right? So we're going to take. We're first looking at Minwoo Lee versus Cam Smith. Obviously, Minwoo is trending in the right direction, having just won last week. Cam Smith playing okay, hasn't done a ton, on Live this year. So we're going to take
I haven't heard his name.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to take Minwoo on the single round matchup at minus 115. And then what about number 2?
Number 2, we finally broke our curse with him. Last week, Brian Harmon and Tom Kim. Brian Harmon, we're going to go with the lefty, since we'll try to see if we can continue our good vibes with Brian Harmon against him. That's at minus 110 as well.
Love that. The Lefty Waggle Show. We'll be back, and we'll have that. And then lastly, we've got Brooks Koepka versus Ludwig Aberg. Brooks Koepka is my dark horse. Ludwig is my backup. I think Brooks Koepka is going to get out to a hot start. I would expect something like 66, 67 from him. We're going to take, Brooks Koepka over Ludwig Aberg. A little bit of an upset alert at plus 110. And take him there over Ludwig Aberg in round 1. So we've got Minwoo over Cam Smith at minus 115. Brian Harmon versus Tom Kim, taking Brian Harmon at minus 110. And Brooks Koepka over Ludwig in round 1 at plus 110. The 3-way parlay is plus 489. Or plus 589, I'm sorry. And there's some promos on DraftKings and FanDuel for the Masters, so make sure you get those in. We're going to come back, hopefully have a after round recap show, at least on the weekends, not tomorrow. We're excited to get into this. Watch the par 3 contest today, and we'll see you guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow for round 1 of the Masters. It's Masters Week. Here,
Merry Christmas.
Just with the Wager Bros.
See ya.